Hello, my friends. My name is Papaneeks, and I would like to welcome you to my playthrough of an all-time classic. One of the greatest games of all time. A game that became a hallmark. Hold on. And that, of course, a game that is technically the third game in the franchise, but really was the game that launched this franchise into a status that many will always remember. You know, it launched it into the realm of all-time greatness. And that, of course, as you can see here, is Metal Gear Solid. Let me get to this screen before it goes to whatever it was I was going to do. So yeah, Metal Gear Solid, a classic from the PlayStation 1. Yeah, the PlayStation 1 era. This was a game that pretty much gave you the reason to get a PS1 for some people. This was a system seller. I heard it was actually possibly going to be on maybe the Super Nintendo or the Nintendo console, because the first two games, as we are about to learn about, were on the original Nintendo console. But this game came out, it was exclusively on the PlayStation 1, although it had a remake done called the Twin Snakes for the GameCube, with updated graphics and such. But before that was made, this game, it set a high standard for a genre, mainly tactical espionage sneaking games. It became a hallmark for things including like voice acting, and keep in mind, this was, I believe, in like 1998. And it was during an era where games were kind of, I mean, they weren't really that amazing in terms of what they would give in terms of content or what they would provide, like in terms of voice acting and story and graphics. At its time, the graphics were outstanding. Although today, well, let's face it, but there's no comparison. But it still holds up to this day. To this day, you can still play this game pretty well, and it still holds up pretty well. The story is so deep and so complex. It is pretty astounding, and it has become an incredible franchise, a franchise that I've become a big fan of, and I'm looking forward to the conclusion later this year with number 5, The Phantom Pain, but I am hopeful that I will be able to do the franchise, playthroughs of this franchise before that can happen, just as long as Konami and Hideo Kojima decide not to flag this game, my playthrough of this game. So, anyway, let's learn, what is this about? What is this that makes this franchise known for? What's the lore? What's the backstory? Well, I said that this was technically the third game in the franchise. The original two games were on the original Nintendo system. Actually, the first one was only released in America, whereas the second one was only released in Japan. We never got the second one on that system, but you can technically play them in the high-definition collection that was part of this, but they're not that great in terms of games that you want to play through, and I don't necessarily feel like playing through those. So, fortunately, though, if you don't want to have to play through those games to know about the backstory, there is an option here in Extras where you can learn about the previous operations, which are the games. So let's take a look at that. First up, the first game, Metal Gear. The year 1995, deep in South Africa, 200 kilometers north of Garsberg, Outer Heaven, an armed fortress nation established by the legendary mercenary who was feared in combat by both his friends and foes as a hero and lunatic. The Western nations have found out that a weapon of mass destruction that could rewrite war history. Oh, whoops. I gotta remember, the controls are just backwards in this. X means go backward, and circle is forward. In other games, it's the reverse. But in this game, it's that way. I gotta remember that. I meant to press circle. Is under development at Outer Heaven. They have called upon the high-tech Special Force Unit Foxhound to take care of the situation. In response to this order, Big Boss Commander-in-Chief of Foxhound sent Gray Fox, the man with the codename Fox, which is given to the best member of the unit, Operation Intrude 9313. After a few days, his last message being Metal Gear. Gray Fox is missing in action. Taking the situation seriously, the top men of the West again called for Foxhound. Big Boss selects Solid Snake, who has just recently joined Foxhound as the agent and entrusts everything to him. Successfully making a solo infiltration to Outer Heaven, Snake got in touch with local resistance members Schneider, Diane, and Jennifer. With their cooperation, Snake succeeds in rescuing Gray Fox. Gray Fox then laid out the terrifying facts about Metal Gear. Metal Gear was the development name of a nuclear warhead-equipped two-legged walking tank. It can walk through even the roughest terrains that would stop normal tanks. It can conduct local warfare by itself with unique weapons like its Vulcan cannon and anti-tank missiles. It was indeed a new type of weapon that can conduct a nuclear attack against any place on the face of the Earth from any land surface. With Metal Gear, Outer Heaven was trying to establish its military superiority over the entire world. In order to destroy Metal Gear, Snake rescues Metal Gear's chief engineer, Dr. Petrovich, and his daughter, Ellen, who is taken hostage for her father to continue with his development, and hears from Dr. Petrovich how to destroy Metal Gear. However, as Snake approaches the heart of Outer Heaven and Metal Gear, well-designed traps are set all around Snake, as if all his actions are being leaked to the enemy. In the midst of escalating battle, the leader of the resistance, Schneider, falls into the hands of the enemy, and Snake himself gets injured through the deadly battles with Outer Heaven's best mercenaries. But Snake's indomitable spirit leads him to the 100th floor basement of the secret base where Metal Gear was developed. Evading the powerful defense system that wipes out all intruders, Snake ultimately succeeds in destroying Metal Gear. Snake tries to escape from Outer Heaven upon completing the mission. However, during the escape, he was confronted by one man, Foxhound Commander-in-Chief, Big Boss. Big Boss laughs at the astounded Snake and tells him of the truth about his mission. While serving as the Commander-in-Chief of Foxhound, Big Boss also ran a mercenary dispatch company utilizing his connections and capital from his years as a merc. He was planning to build this company a larger military establishment, and he built Outer Heaven as its base. His purpose for sending the rookie Snake to Outer Heaven was to cause information confusion against the West. However, Big Boss is miscalculated. He never thought that Snake would make it this far. Having lost Metal Gear, Big Boss activates the self-destruction system of the underground base. While the countdown to destruction continues, his scream echoes in the emptiness. "You have gone too far! Too far!" On the 100th floor basement, the battle between the two men commences. Free of ideology and politics, the armed fortress nation Outer Heaven collapsed. The impenetrable fortress, made from the best military technology and occupied by the toughest mercenaries, burned in flames. Behind him, the flames reached skyward, as Outer Heaven fell, leaving Solid Snake all alone. Then, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. In 1999, the world was facing an energy crisis. It was obvious that the supply of petroleum would run out faster than expected. However, the development of an alternate energy resource is far from completion. The price of petroleum has skyrocketed, and the world economy is in confusion. The 21st century was expected to be one of chaos. Whoops. One man's invention changed the entire situation. A Czech genius and biologist, Dr. Keo Marv, invented Olix, a microorganism that refines petroleum to produce a highly purified form of petroleum. The world was filled with hope upon the discovery of this messiah to solve the energy crisis. But at the same time, the world entered a time of tension regarding this new algae. Just when the whole world's attention was drawn to Olix and Dr. Marv, he gets abducted by someone and disappears. Nations began investigations immediately, and a name soon appeared: Zanzibar Land. Zanzibar Land was a democratic military regime that suddenly appeared in Central Asia in 1997. When their uprising took place, the CIS army formed around Russia sends a suppressive unit immediately. Zanzibar Land resists by gathering a band of mercenaries from nations around the world and fortifying most of its land. As a result, the CIS army was repeatedly defeated, and Zanzibar Land declared its independence. Due to the active role mercenaries played, this war was called the Mercenary War, and Zanzibar Land was referred to as an armed fortress nation, a military nation with a group of strong mercenaries surrounded by a tough fortress. According to the latest information, Zanzibar supposedly is armed with nuclear weapons. The whole scenario was crystal clear. By obtaining Olex, in addition to nuclear weapons, Zanzibar Land was trying to establish its economic and military superiority over the entire world. Kinda sounds like what was going on with Outer Heaven in the first game, doesn't it? Concerned about the situation, the United States orders Roy Campbell, Commander-in-Chief of High-Tech Special Forces Unit Foxhound, to rescue Dr. Marv. Campbell was a former member of Foxhound. He brought back Solid Snake, the man who single-handedly brought down the armed fortress nation of Outer Heaven 4 years ago, and asked him to win back both Dr. Marv and Olex. Successfully infiltrating Zanzibar Land, and with the help of CIA agent Hori and others, Snake is able to go deep into the fortress and meet again with Dr. Petrovich, the chief engineer of Metal Gear at Outer Heaven. He too was abducted to Zanzibar Land and was forced to develop another Metal Gear. He tells the surprised Snake of an even more shocking fact. Big Boss, the man Snake had defeated at Outer Heaven, turned out to be the general commander of Zanzibar Land. Snake rescues Dr. Petrovich in cooperation with Natasha, Dr. Marv's guard and former Czech international secret police agent, and then heads for the confinement facility deep in the fortress to save Dr. Marv. When Petrovich and Natasha crossed the narrow suspension bridge over the deep valley, a missile blew the bridge away. Natasha flies into the air because of the explosion. While unable to do anything to save Natasha, Snake starts hearing a well-known voice. "Hey, Snake, we are good buddies. I can let you go. Just leave this place at once." Gray Fox. Snake sees Gray Fox controlling Metal Gear, the best soldier in Foxhound who, after the fall of Outer Heaven, disappeared as if he followed Big Boss. Losing Natasha in front of his eyes and letting Petrovich being taken away, Snake screams, "Fox, I will not give up!" After a series of deadly battles with mercenaries, Snake finally gets to Dr. Marv's confinement facility. However, when he arrives, he is too late. He sees Dr. Marv's corpse and Petrovich, who could do nothing but just stand there. Petrovich tells Snake that Dr. Marv could not withstand the repeated tortures because of heart problems. Snake then receives an emergency call from Hori. The information she supplied was very shocking. Petrovich has been voluntarily visiting Zanzibar Land to develop Metal Gear. The abduction of Dr. Marv was conducted under the directions of Petrovich himself. After the truth comes out, Petrovich attacks Snake, but Snake easily puts an end to him and obtains the structural plan of Olex. While trying to escape, Snake is confronted by Metal Gear again, controlled by Gray Fox. The tremendous battle takes place in the underground base, and Snake finally succeeds in destroying Metal Gear. However, Gray Fox does not submit and challenges Snake to the final battle. In the midst of a minefield, Snake and Fox fight without any weapons. A fist-to-fist duel involving no hatred or murder intent. During that weird moment of purity, the two are bound in forces transcending words and emotion. Snake wins the tough but pure battle against Gray Fox. However, there still was someone else Snake had to fight. Big Boss. Just like 4 years ago, at Outer Heaven, Big Boss was waiting for Snake. One who has experienced the tension of battle can never leave the battlefield. I am the one giving you something to live for, and that is war. Snake is infuriated at the arrogant Big Boss. There is only one battle I have to fight. To free myself from you. To shatter the nightmare. Big Boss, I will kill you. With the structural plan of Olex, Snake and Ori escape from Zanzibar land on a rescue helicopter. Snake once again saves the world. However, there is no smile on his face. Big Boss's last words keep ringing in Snake's head. Whichever wins, our battle does not end. The loser is freed from the battlefield, but the winner must remain there, and the survivor must live his life as a warrior until he dies. Snake then disappears into the white lands of Alaska, alone. So that is what happened in the first two games that were on the original Nintendo system. That second game was never released in America. It was only released in Japan until this high-definition collection. So that's the story of those two games. But what's the story about this game? Well, there is a briefing section here where Campbell briefs Snake about this mission. Let's listen and find out.
It's been a long time,
Campbell.
Snake.
I should have known you were behind this, Colonel.
That's no way to greet an old war buddy, Snake.
What do you want from me?
I just invited you here so we could have a talk.
Invited? That's what you call sending armed soldiers after me?
Sorry if they were a little rough with you. But we've got a serious situation here. Only you can get us out of it.
I'm
PS1
retired from
graphics.
Foxhound. You're not my commander anymore, and I don't have to take orders from you or anyone
Takes
else.
me back.
You will take these orders.
Ooh.
I know it.
Excuse me.
Oh.
Who's this?
Dr. Naomi Hunter. She's chief of Foxhound's medical staff.
Hello, doctor.
And an expert in gene therapy.
Are you
Gene
military?
No, civilian. I've been sent here from ATG.
Hey, it's Jennifer Hale.
Pleasure to meet you, Snake. Don't worry. This injection won't hurt a bit.
What's the shot for?
What's wrong? You don't like shots?
I don't like shots.
Snake, listen up. It all went down 5 hours ago. Heavily armed soldiers occupied Shadow Moses Island, a remote island off the coast of Alaska.
Alaska again.
What soldiers?
Next generation special forces, led by members of Unit
Foxhound.
They've presented Washington with a single demand, and they say that if it isn't met, they'll launch a nuclear weapon.
Really?
A nuclear weapon?
Do they
I'm
really
afraid
have a
so.
nuclear weapon?
You see, the island is the site of a secret nuclear weapons
Oh, I guess that
disposal
answers that
facility.
question.
Foxhound hijacking a nuclear weapon?
Now you understand how serious the situation
Yeah.
is. You'll have two mission objectives. First, you're to rescue the DARPA chief, Donald Anderson, and the president of Arms Tech, Kenneth Baker.
Okay.
They're both being held as
Ah.
hostages.
Those are some heavy-duty
Yep,
hostages.
sounds like it.
Secondly, you're to investigate whether or not the terrorists have the ability to launch a nuclear strike, and stop them if they do.
Uh-huh.
Any questions, Snake?
Questions? I haven't even said whether I'd accept this mission.
Well, you can make up your mind after you hear more about the situation.
The voice actor for Snake, David Hayter, has become one of the most well-known voice actors in all of video games. The way he does this character has become iconic. In the way everyone loves to impersonate him and his voice of Snake. It's fantastic. So yeah, we are going. That was a little initial brief by Campbell, who is briefing us on this mission, and we have more to find out about this, about the details of this mission. Because hey, if we're gonna be doing a mission like this where we have to stop these guys from using a nuclear weapon, we gotta know what we're gonna be going up against. So let's first start with how are we gonna infiltrate this island? Here we go. Infiltration method.
Tell me about the nuclear weapon disposal facility.
The
These
disposal
PS1
facility
graphics, I love it.
Includes a hardened underground base. Even with our most
By the way, Snake,
advanced
nice mullet.
intelligence gathering equipment, we can't tell what's happening inside.
So someone needs to penetrate, gather intelligence, and report back. Sounds like a spy movie. What's the insertion method?
Well, an air insertion is impossible.
Not with this storm going on.
Huh.
We'll approach the disposal facility by
Sub.
Approach?
Yes, within a few miles of it. The facility is equipped with sonar detection capabilities. They'd be able to hear our engine or propeller noise.
And then?
We'll launch a one-man SDV.
A swimmer delivery
Launch.
vehicle.
Same as a torpedo, only this has no propulsion device of its own. After the SDV gets as close as it can, dispose of it. From there on, you'll have to
What?
swim.
You want me to swim in sub-zero Alaskan
You want me to
water?
freeze to
Don't
death?
worry. That suit represents the latest advances in polythermal
Oh, really?
technology. The nuclear
I guess that's
weapons
comforting to
disposal
know.
facility covers the whole island. I'll instruct you by codec after you reach your target.
Anyone going with me?
As usual, this is a one-man infiltration
Great.
mission.
Weapons and equipment
On-site
OSP?
procurement?
Yes.
Huh.
This is a top-secret black op. Don't expect any official support.
So the only way they can get me in is by launching me in a torpedo from a sub with a swimmer delivery vehicle and then have me swim in Alaskan Arctic waters into the base. They're not making this easy for me, are they? Oh, here's a good question. What's my time limit on completing this mission?
What's the time limit?
24
Oh, great.
hours. They say they'll launch after 24 hours.
Do they say what the target will be?
So far, they haven't mentioned the
When did they
target.
give that deadline?
When did the countdown start?
5
Oh,
hours
great. So
ago.
I only have 19 hours. Wonderful. So I have less than a day to complete this mission. Fantastic. Okay, so who's in charge of this operation? Snake, I hope you're wearing skivvies. You better be wearing some
Colonel,
underpants.
who are you speaking for?
Naturally, I'm representing the U.S. government.
So who's in supervisory control of this operation?
Oh, camera free.
The President of the United States.
Oh.
Which means that the president must be meeting with his
Oh my
top
gosh,
aides in the
Snake.
map room about now.
Oh, yikes.
No, at this point, they're still video conferencing with
Let's
each
keep this
other.
camera up.
If that's a real nuclear warhead, shouldn't they issue a COG?
Not yet. The Secretary of Defense has operational control and is fully aware of the situation.
Huh.
After you infiltrate, if you determine they possess nuclear launch capabilities, a COG will be issued.
Well, if they haven't relocated to the nuclear shelter under Mount Washington, I suppose there isn't that much reason to worry yet. Is the National Security Agency in on this?
Yes. So is the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency.
The DIA? I'm starting to get a bad feeling about this.
They'll be sending us some support.
We don't need desk jockeys. We need a nuclear weapons specialist.
Of course. A nuclear weapons specialist has already been assigned to us.
All right. So we have support from the NSA, the DIA, and the Secretary of Defense, and a nuclear weapons specialist. Great. So who's my support crew? Who do I have supporting me on this mission?
We need backup from a specialist. I'm just an amateur when it comes to nuclear weapons.
I know.
I don't know anything about nukes.
That's why I've requested the assistance of a military analyst named Nastasha Romanenko. She'll be providing you backup by
Romanenko.
codec.
Oh, she was born in the
Female
Ukraine.
analyst?
She's built up an impressive record as an advisor for the Nuclear Emergency Search
Huh.
Team. Contact her if you have any questions. She's also an expert on high-tech weapons.
Where's she working from?
At her home in Los Angeles.
Huh.
California.
California.
Seems like a million miles away.
Yeah, Alaska seems like a million miles away from California, but hey. All right, let's find out more about Roy Campbell. So we learned that he was a former member of Foxhound, and that he was the commander-in-chief of Foxhound in Metal Gear 2. And so now I guess he's still helping us now? Let's ask him. But let's see if Snake asks him.
Colonel, you're retired.
Oh, he's retired.
Why are you involved in this?
Because there aren't many people who know Foxhound as well as I do.
Is that really the only reason?
I've been soldiering for a long time. I don't know anything else. I guess even though I'm getting a little old, I still love to be in the field.
Colonel, you're a lousy liar. Tell me the real reason.
Okay, Snake. Sorry. I'll be frank. A
Please.
person very dear to me is being held hostage.
Who is it?
My
Your niece.
Meryl.
Meryl? What is your niece doing on that island? Please, explain.
What was your niece doing here?
Several soldiers were reported missing the day of the revolt. And my niece was one of those called in as an emergency replacement.
She looks like you.
Really?
She's my little brother's girl. He died in the Gulf War, and since then I've been watching after her.
A personal motive, Colonel. That's not very soldierly.
I'm retired. I'm just an old man now.
Has received sacrament not to be
And I'm
attracted
your
to
friend.
those of the opposite sex.
Since when are we friends?
Oh,
I've thought of us
what
as
a
friends
shame.
since the fall of Zanzibar.
With my personality, I don't have too many friends.
Aw,
That's what I trust about you. It's what makes you human.
really?
Please, Snake. Save my niece, Meryl.
Talk about
All
a
right.
close-up.
But I have two conditions.
Name them.
1, no more secrets between us. I want complete disclosure at all times. And 2, I'll only accept orders directly from you, Colonel. No cutoffs involved, okay?
Agreed. That's why I was called. But one thing,
What?
I'm not a colonel anymore. Just a retired old warhorse.
Oh.
I understand. Colonel.
So he's like, I don't care, I'll still call you Colonel. You're still a Colonel to me. Huh. And who is this Dr. Naomi, by the way? This lady who is injecting shots into me.
That doctor, is she part of this operation too?
She was in charge of Foxhound's gene therapy. She knows more about those men than anyone
Gene
else.
therapy.
You mean you've seen them naked?
Oh, hey-oh.
Make no mistake, I'm not a nurse. I'm a
Oh,
scientist.
sorry.
By the way, what was that injection for?
It's a combination of nanomachines and an anti-freezing peptide so that your
Nanomachines?
blood and other bodily fluids don't freeze, even at subarctic temperatures.
Nanomachines.
Not just one kind, either. There are different types which will replenish the supply of adrenaline, nutrition, and sugar in your bloodstream.
Now I don't have to worry about food.
I also put some nootropics in there.
Say what?
Nootropics.
I'm sorry?
A class of drugs which will help improve your mental functioning.
Oh, okay.
It'll make me smarter, huh?
Probably
Anything
more
else?
mentally
Yes.
aware.
Benzedrine. It's a type of stimulant. It'll keep you alert and responsive for 12 straight
Wow.
hours.
That was quite a cocktail. Anything else in
Some
there?
cocktail.
Those nanomachines will also keep your Codex batteries charged up.
I guess I can call you when I'm ready to go on a diet.
Uh,
You're welcome.
I like Snake's wittiness. Like that he's got a sense of humor about him. Alright, let's get some more detailed information. What do we know about the hostages?
The chief of DARPA and the president of an arms manufacturing company. What business did they have at a nuclear weapons disposal facility?
The truth is that secret exercises were being conducted at the time the terrorist group attacked.
Must be extremely important exercises if those two were directly involved. Were they testing some kind of new advanced weapon?
I'm not privy to that information.
Do we know
Above your pay
exactly
grade,
where
huh?
they're being held?
The DARPA chief has also been injected with a mini transmitter. As you get closer, you should be able to pick up his location on your radar.
Okay. She made that sound simple enough. Alright, what about the nuclear weapons?
Do they really have the ability to launch a nuclear missile?
They say they do. They even gave us the serial number of the warhead they plan to use.
Oh, wow.
Was the number confirmed?
I'm afraid so. At the very least, they've got their hands on a real nuclear warhead.
Isn't there some kind of safety device to prevent this type of terrorism?
Yes. Every missile and warhead in our arsenal is equipped with a PAL, which uses a discrete detonation
Okay.
PAL.
code. Permissive Action Link. The safety control system built into all nuclear weapons
Uh-huh.
systems. But even so, we can't rest easy.
Why not?
Because the DARPA chief knows the detonation
Oh,
code.
great. No wonder they have him
But
hostage.
even if they have a nuclear warhead, it must have been removed from its missile. All the missiles on these disposal sites are supposed to be dismantled. It's not that easy to get your hands on an ICBM.
Aha.
That used to be true. But since the end of the Cold War, you can get anything if you have enough money and the right connections.
I'm pretty sure there's quite a bit of truth to that for the immediate aftermath of the Cold War. The terrorist armament.
How well armed are these terrorists? I know there was an exercise going on at the time they revolted.
They're heavily armed, I'm afraid.
What about their battle experience?
The 6 members of Foxhound in charge are all hardened veterans. They're tough enough to eat nails and ask for seconds.
I wouldn't expect anything less from Foxhound.
The others are next-generation special forces. They're not your average grunts either.
Huh. That's cool that it lets me, like, mess around with the camera there. Alright, what about their demands?
So what exactly are they demanding?
A person's remains.
Remains?
That's right.
Whose?
To be more accurate, cell specimens which contain the individual's genomic information.
Cell specimens? Why would they want that?
The terrorists need them. You see, these next-generation special forces have been strengthened through gene therapy.
Strengthened?
You've heard of the Human Genome Project.
Sure.
They've been mapping the human genome, and they're nearly finished. Following up on this research, the military has been working towards identifying those genes which are responsible for making effective soldiers.
Oh, I see.
There are genes that do that?
Yes. And using gene therapy, they're able to transplant those genes into regular soldiers.
Huh.
Gene
Interesting.
I'll explain this
Okay.
part. With gene therapy, we can remove those genes which we know may lead to sickness or disease, and at the same time splice in genes with beneficial effects, such as resistance to cancer, for example.
In other words, we can overcome all sorts of genetic diseases, and at the same time add genetic characteristics as
For
desired.
soldiers? Wow, that's
Okay.
incredible.
And so if you knew what genes were responsible for making the perfect soldier, you could implant them in the same
Aha.
way, right?
Almost like
Yes,
making a
we
super
could.
soldier.
But it all depends on being able to isolate and identify those soldier genes.
And in order to do that, it's helpful if you can study the genomic information of one of the greatest soldiers ever.
One of the greatest soldiers ever. Who? Genetic strengthening. Which soldier are we talking about?
One of the greatest soldiers ever?
The man they call the greatest warrior of the 20th century.
You don't mean
Big Boss!
That's right. We've been working feverishly to identify the genes responsible for his incredible
Oh my gosh, they want Big Boss's
so far, we've
remains
discovered about 60 of the so-called soldier genes.
so they can study
So
his
body
genes.
was recovered
Wow.
after all.
Yes.
So they did recover
and
his
cells have
body.
remained frozen in a cryo chamber. His
Oh, in a
genomic
cryo
information
chamber.
is a priceless treasure to
Huh.
mankind.
Priceless to the military,
Yeah,
perhaps.
probably.
His body was burned severely, but it was possible to restore his DNA profile from just a single strand of his hair.
Wow.
You people are amazing. And then you're gonna transplant those genes into soldiers?
Yes. We'll use a process that I discovered called gene targeting. The strongest soldiers don't become what they are by acquiring their skills through training or experience. We now know that hereditary factors are far more crucial for creating superior soldiers.
Snake, we can't give them his body. It's potentially more dangerous than all the nuclear warheads on that island put
Really?
together.
I hear the terrorists are calling themselves the Sons of Big Boss.
The sons of Big Boss?
Huh. They consider giving the terrorists Big Boss's body and genes more dangerous than the nuclear warheads. Wow, they must have Big Boss must have been incredible in his prime. To be called the greatest warrior of the 20th century. Wow. That must have been some soldier. So let's learn more about this next generation special force unit.
Tell me about these next generation special forces.
They started out as an anti-terrorist special ops unit, made up of former members of biochem units, technical escort units, and the nuclear emergency search team. Their purpose was to respond to threats involving next-generation weapons of mass destruction, including NBC weapons.
Until they were added, that
I don't think
is.
they mean the channel NBC.
Who's they?
These guys didn't start out as regular army.
Looks like a pretty international group. Mercenaries?
Yeah, and it
Of course,
gets worse.
mercenaries.
Most of them were from a merc agency that I think you're familiar with. They were part of Big Boss's private guard.
Course.
And after Big Boss went down, the military just bought out all their contracts.
Outer heaven.
Outer heaven.
After that, they were merged with our own VR unit, Force 21, and retrained. If you ask me, these so-called next-generation special forces should be called simulated soldiers. They have no real battle experience.
Video game players.
Ah!
Don't forget they've all been strengthened with gene therapy. They carry genes which make them excellent soldiers. Don't get careless just because they don't have much experience.
I thought using genetically modified soldiers was prohibited by international
That's a
law.
good point.
Yes, but those are just declarations, not actual treaties.
Oh. So we're gonna use the
The
technicality
interesting
now,
thing
huh?
is that nearly every member of the unit conspired in this attack.
So they're all a part of it. They're all involved. I see. Okay. The reason for unanimous approval.
How could an entire unit be subverted to rebellion?
They're calling it a revolution.
Huh. Of
Since
course.
they all went through the same gene therapy, they probably felt closer than brothers. They see the unit as their only family.
The sons of Big Boss. But if they were regular army, they must have been interviewed periodically by army counselors.
According to their files, they all got straight A's on their psychological tests. They all seemed like fine, upstanding, patriotic soldiers.
But they all took part in the uprising?
No, several people didn't show up on the day of the exercise. That's why there was a resupply of troops.
Was there any sign recently that something might be wrong?
There was a report a month ago that they were acting strangely.
Apparently they consulted classified information about the soldier genes and performed their own gene therapy experiments.
They can do that even without you?
Well, our gene therapy process is almost completely automated. And besides that, they're all geniuses with IQs over 180.
Really? Those are some
Even the
smart
existence
soldiers.
of this genome army is a national secret of the highest order. We've been hoping to investigate this thing quietly and deal with it behind closed doors.
Of course. Because, of course, dealing with it behind closed doors is more important than anything else. So let's see if they can tell us more about this new unit Foxhound. Because I have a feeling this might be a different unit than the one that Snake and Campbell served with.
High-tech Special Forces Unit Foxhound. Your former unit, and one that I was a commander
But are
of.
they the same soldiers?
An elite group combining firepower and expertise. They're every bit as good as when I was commanding them.
I guess so.
So they're still around.
There are 6 members of Foxhound involved in this terrorist activity. Psycho Mantis.
Psycho
with his
Mantis?
powerful psychic
He's a
abilities.
psychic? Really?
Sniper Wolf, the beautiful and deadly
Sniper
sharpshooter.
Wolf?
Decoy Octopus, master of
Decoy.
disguise.
Wow. Yeah.
Vulcan Raven, giant and shaman.
A shaman named Vulcan
and
Raven.
Revolver Ocelot, specialist in interrogation and a formidable
With a name like
gunfighter.
Revolver,
Looks
he
like
better be a
lovely
good
bunch of
gunfighter.
folks. Too bad we'll be meeting under these
Who's the
circumstances.
6th member?
And finally, in charge of them, Foxhound's squad leader, Liquid Snake.
Liquid Snake?
Liquid Snake.
Yes. And you're the only person who can stand against him.
Why? Because we have the same code name? Weird. I'm Solid Snake, but this guy is called Liquid Snake? Yes, let's find out more about this guy. Who is he?
Liquid Snake.
Liquid Snake. The man with the same code name as you.
Okay.
Tell me what you know.
He fought in the Gulf War as a teenager, the youngest person in the SAS. His job was to track down and destroy
British.
mobile Scud missile launching platforms. You were there too, I believe. Didn't you infiltrate Western Iraq with a platoon of Green Berets?
I was just a kid myself back
Huh.
then.
The details are classified, but it seems that originally he penetrated the Middle East as a sleeper for the SIS.
Fluent in 7
He was
languages.
a spy for the British Secret Intelligence Service?
but he never once showed his face in Century House. He was taken prisoner in Iraq, and after that there was no trace of him for several years. After you
They look
retired, he was
almost
rescued
exactly the same.
and became a member of Foxhound.
In fact, they probably do look
I
exactly
thought
the
that by
same.
the time I left, they were no longer using code names.
I don't know his real name. That information is so highly classified that even I can't look at it. Here's a photo of him.
Whoa.
Pretty shocking, huh? His skin tone is different, but otherwise you two are exact duplicates.
Wow, he has a twin.
I have a twin?
I don't know the details, but it seems so.
Huh.
That's why we really need you for this mission.
You're the only one who can beat him. Now that I've met you, I know.
Really?
You've got something that he doesn't.
Huh.
I can see it in your eyes.
And what would that be, Doctor?
Why don't I find that thought more comforting?
Huh. So they think that because they have the same codename that he automatically can be able to beat him. Okay. Oh, hold on.
I need to borrow your scissors.
What are you going to do?
Don't worry, just gonna clean myself up a little.
Huh?
He's gonna give himself a haircut.
I don't want to be mistaken for the leader of the terrorists.
Time to get rid of the mullet. I mean, looked like Liquid Snake also had a mullet, so he figured, hey, I'll give myself a haircut. That way we'll be able to be told between the two of us. They'll be able to know which one is which. Alright, so that was the briefing of Metal Gear Solid. So when we come back, we will be beginning my playthrough of one of the all-time classics, Metal Gear Solid. Stay tuned!